What's up everybody, this is Boywithafishtank, and today we're going to talk about dwarf African frogs. And I wanted to make this video to kind of show you guys that there are other ways of keeping these frogs than people usually do, because whenever I see somebody having dwarf African frogs, it's always like a really ridiculous plastic fake tank. And these frogs just doesn't like that. You have to have a natural environment, and that is always best for the animals. So I know that when I began in the hobby, I always bought these plastic things and stuff like that, but please stop doing that, because it's just not right, okay? So that is just my honest opinion. But what you can do is give them a very comfortable environment, you know, with plants like hygrophila, you see here. They actually really like this plant, they always hide in this plant. They have a lot of leaves and big leaves where they can perch on and things like that. Blindophylla is especially a good plant. They usually sit in here. This is a fast growing plant, so you can keep it in pretty much any tank. They don't need a lot of lighting. You know, very easy to care for a plant. Egeria the same with the Blindophylla. This species also grows really fast. They also kind of grow pretty dense, and that also gives a way for the frogs to actually hide. So what does these frogs eat, and how many do I got and stuff like that. But I got 2 frogs in this tank, and I got them for 3 days ago, and they have been doing really well. They have been hiding a lot, but that's what these frogs do in the wild, because in the wild they're used to hiding all the time to make sure that you know, predators won't eat them, because they're very tiny. You can just see here, if I can find one of them. You can see one right there actually. Just look at that. Look at that little guy. He's awesome. Hey little guy. He's just sitting there. He was walking around before. It's a very calm frog. They don't really move a lot. Like for example the African clawed frog. Those guys are very aggressive eaters, but these guys are a lot more peaceful. And when it comes to food, they're actually kind of picky. With my experience, they don't really want to eat flake food or pellet food as much as they want to eat frozen and live foods. So I always feed them frozen food every day. I feed them bloodworms, you know, mysis, krill, pretty much anything frozen. Like they eat pretty much anything frozen food that you can get at any fish store. So krill, daphnia, you know, even like I actually think you can cut small pieces of meat and put it down to them, but it has to be really tiny. They also eat mosquito larvae. I feed mine live mosquito larvae. They really seem to enjoy that. But there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration before getting these frogs, because as I said, you have to have a good sized tank, because I see a lot of people having these like tiny like betta cups thingies, and they just put like 3 African dwarf frogs in there because it might be a 3-gallon cup or something, and they're like you know, 1 gallon per frog or something like that. I just don't follow that rule, guys. Like, that is just how it is. Don't follow that rule, because it's not true. I would actually say, if I had to make a rule like that, I really don't want to, because I don't want to follow any of those rules. But if I had to, I would probably say like maybe 5 gallon per frog, because they do require a lot of space, and they do like to be in a big environment and things like that. So a good sized tank is good for them. You know, a 5 gallon tank might work fine, you know, but you can only have like 2 frogs in there or something. Maybe only 1 frog actually. But I wouldn't recommend keeping 1 frog only, because these frogs are actually pretty social animals. So they like to be in groups of 2 or more, so you can just add a lot of frogs into a tank and that they will be thriving. These guys are, you know, that you won't see them that much because they hide a lot, and you know, that's, as I said earlier, that's what they do in the wild. They only really come out when you feed them. You might see a frog head sticking out of plants and the rocks every now and again, but that's really it. You won't really see these frogs as much, and that's why people think they are boring and things like that. But I actually think they're pretty cool, because if I had to have a terrarium, I would have frogs, because I think frogs are awesome. So I don't really have a terrarium, and I don't really like terrariums, to be honest. I like aquariums a lot more, so a fully aquatic frog was a good idea. I thought like this would be awesome, and you know, I got guppies because these guys are very small fish. They might eat pretty much anything you throw down in the tank, but if you give a lot of food down to the tank, some food is going to get to the bottom. That is what I can say right away. You can also just take a syringe and actually spray it down on the bottom so that there will be bloodworms or something like that all over the bottom that the frogs can eat. But they're very slow eaters. They don't really eat that fast. They like suck it up like some spaghetti, and they'll like take their hands and they will like kind of like put it, like stuck it down their throat, and they will try to kind of swallow it because they don't really, they are not very good at swallowing for some reason. It's kind of weird. But they often hide over here in this area. You can actually see one of the frogs right in there at the roots of that hydrophila. You can see one right there. You can see the spots of it. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. You can see its foot right there. It's just looking out towards me. You can see its eyes. I got 2 frogs, as I said, but they're both females. The way you can tell difference between the two, between males and females, is that males have these glands on their bodies behind their forearms or their forelegs. It's kind of these white glands. It looks pretty weird, so you will immediately see if it's a male frog. A female frog is a little bit more wide. They're a lot bigger actually. They get a little bit bigger than the males, and that's pretty much it. They don't really have any other sort of things that you can recognize them from. But you have to remember that small fish and small invertebrates is ideal to keep these frogs, because a lot of big fish will just tear them apart and eat them like a snack, and some fish will not really mind them that much. So you gotta be sure to not get anything that, even like if you get aggressive small fish, that is also a really bad idea, because you know, frogs have this really vulnerable skin. So whenever a fish nips at them, they'll get a wound right away, and that can actually cause infections and things like that. Speaking of that, you should not touch these frogs as much as possible, so I recommend that you should be a little bit more careful when handling these guys, because they actually are, some of them are actually carriers of salmonella, and that is pretty dangerous. You can die of that disease, so you don't want that. So whenever you have had your hands down your tank, I recommend you should wash your hands. Of course you should do that anyway, because it's kind of disgusting if you don't, but you should definitely wash your hands whenever you touch these frogs. Actually just keep away from touching these frogs in general, because they don't really like it that much. Like, I don't really think a lot of animals do. Pets like cats and things like that will do that. Of course fish and frogs are pets too, but not in the same way, you know. But anyway, what you gotta do, what I can recommend, is that you get a tank with a lot of plants, a lot of hiding spots, and then the frogs will be happy. They might show up every now and again, you know, sit here in the front of the tank like looking around, and that's really all you will see them do. They will also swim up to the top of the water. And what you have to remember is that you want to have, this tank is a more tall tank than a wide tank. So what I did was that I placed a lot of these rocks that I used in my old African cichlid fry tank. And this is in fact my old African cichlid fry tank, but I had these rocks that are a lot more like, they are soft, they don't really have these sharp edges, and the frogs can actually sit on top of this, and they can easier jump up to the top. And the reason they jump up to the top is that, yes, you know, they are fully aquatic frogs, but they don't have gills. They still have lungs, because they are used to live in small water holes where they can just immediately go up and, you know, breathe some air, and it's a lot more effective than being a fish with gills, because oh, there's a frog right there. Look at that guy. Hey little guy. Look at that, he's just swimming up to the top, he's swimming down again. They make this funny swimming sort of behavior. You see he's actually out in the open now. There's one of them that is always out in the open, and then the other one doesn't really like to get out in the open. And you can see one right here. He's just spreading his legs out, a crazy little guy. But you know, a thing that you have to remember is that, you know, they want to do that, but also a thing you can do is that you don't need to have very clean water if you don't keep fish together with them, because they don't have gills, so they don't really mind how dirty the water is, so nitrates and things like that doesn't really matter, to be honest. But of course they really want to swim around in more clean water than dirty water that you can't see through. That is just, you know, obvious sense. But you know, these guys seem to actually be, as I said, piggy eaters, so make sure that you try to feed them, like putting some food in front of their heads. You can see it's trying to swim under the rock right here. It's just sitting down there. I really think these frogs are very awesome. I think they're a really cool invertebrate to have. But I just wanted to remind you guys about, you know, they're not that easy to keep as people say. So don't do that 1 gallon per frog thing, and don't just don't put a lot of frogs in one tank. Of course you gotta have more than one frog because they're social animals, but you know, for the aquascape I recommend rocks and driftwood, and sand is actually what I can recommend the most. Because gravel, it's like, I never really like gravel that much, to be honest. I like sand a lot more. They seem to like the sand actually. Some people have said that they just eat the sand, but I've never seen mine do that. Never. So they just, you know, like this guy, they just chill around. As you can see, if it would have a gland, it would have, you know, if it would be a male, it would have a gland behind its forelegs right there. There would be a tiny white spot. There would like be a little popped sort of circle. That would be if it was a male, but it's not. But you can see here, like, they have small spots, and they have tiny eyes. Their forelegs are not very big. They have these small little pointy fingers, and then on the back of their legs they have these swim feet. With you know, swim skin behind it, or well, between it. So they look really awesome. I think they're a really cool animal. So you can keep them with small fish, as I said, like guppies are a good choice and things like that. Really cool frog. I really like these guys. They're very awesome. So yeah, that's really all I can tell about these frogs that you guys need to know. And that was sort of a little update for you guys as well, but I thought that I would make a care video instead of an update. So let's just quickly look at the guppies, see if there's any pregnant guppies. This female is pregnant. You know, most of the guppies are pregnant. She is pregnant too. So is she. This one right here. No, not that one. This one right here. No, where did it go? Where did it go? There it is. This one is getting squared off slowly. That one right there. They just go in front of the camera all the time. That one right there. And she is soon going to give birth to some fry. I don't know when, but pretty soon. So yeah, you can see the feet of the frog right there. So that's really all I can say, guys. I hope this helped you guys a little bit about keeping these frogs properly. And yeah, that's basically all I can say. And yeah, see you guys in another video.